Everything you believe is a lie. The stars you idolize, actors, musicians, athletes, they're not who you think they are. They're scripts, performed, repeated, controlled, and in the elite world of football, a name is rising faster than all the rest: Lamine Yamal. But this kid isn't just a footballer. He's a puppet in a much larger Masonic performance. If you're thinking that sounds insane, remember, that's exactly what they want you to think. Because his story, the immigrant parents, the Lamine landlord, the raffle that led his family to meet Barcelona players, and a photo with Messi when he was barely 6 months old, isn't a miracle. It's a message. A message just like the one Messi was given. What if Yamal's rise wasn't just by chance? What if his path, just like Messi's, was orchestrated from the very beginning? Is this just another football fairy tale, or something far more sinister? Etched with Masonic symbols, aligned with sacred numbers, orchestrated by the same hidden network that gave us Messi, Neymar, and maybe even Beyoncé. They did it before, they're doing it again. But this time, they got lazy. They left a trail. And once you follow it, you'll never watch football the same way again. They say Lamine Yamal is the future of football, a boy born into poverty, rising from the shadows of La Masia, photographed with Messi at just 6 months old. By 15, Barcelona was calling him the chosen one. But here's the question: was he chosen because of talent, or was he trained to believe he was chosen? Because the most powerful kind of control is when you make the subject believe it was his destiny all along. This wasn't a fairy tale. It was conditioning disguised as fate. The youngest debutant for Spain, the youngest scorer in La Liga, the youngest to ever step onto the pitch at a European championship. A fairy tale, they say, a divine prodigy, a miracle. But miracles don't follow blueprints, scripts do. Lamine Yamal was born on 13/07/2007. 13, the number of death and rebirth in Masonic ritual. 0707, the Kabbalistic code of the divine child. And if you sum the full date, 1 plus 3 plus 0 plus 7 plus 0 plus 7 equals 18. 1 plus 8 equals 9, the number of completion. His birth wasn't symbolic, it was encoded. 13, a sacred number for those in power, linked to death, rebirth, and initiation. His birthday? Not a coincidence, but a message. Lamine made his Barcelona debut exactly 7 months after Queen Elizabeth died, and he wore jersey number 27, the infamous age of sacrifice, the number where legends vanish, the number whispered about in music conspiracies. Was this football's version of the same ritual? A crown didn't just fall, it was passed to a new vessel. He was promoted under Xavi, a tactical mastermind obsessed with positional play. But trace those positions on the pitch, and they mirror the Masonic compass. A football field turned temple, not strategy, symmetry. A map drawn by those who control futures through geometry. In his first international goal, Yamal pointed upward, at a 33-degree angle. That's not just a celebration. That's the highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. They weren't hiding it, they were initiating him. You were told this was talent, a miracle. But decode the numbers, map the patterns, trace the rituals, and you realize this wasn't a rise, it was a ritual. And it's not the first time they've done it. The photo with Messi wasn't luck, it was placement. Because when you control the script, you don't wait for stars, you manufacture them. You've heard the story, right? His name was Lamine, after a kind landlord who helped his struggling parents pay rent in Barcelona. Heartwarming. Coincidental. That's what they want you to think. In Arabic, Lamine comes from Al-Amin, the trustworthy one, a title given to prophets, a name used when someone has been chosen. Reverse Yamal, and you get Lameh, a word found in sacred Hebrew texts, linked to sacrifice, exchange, and divine substitution. Lamine Yamal, the trustworthy sacrifice, born on a ritual-coded day, carrying a name that reads like prophecy. He wasn't just born under a sign, he was named for a purpose. This wasn't parental gratitude, it was preparation, the kind used in rituals, not cribs. Last chapter we trace the numbers. This time we follow the names. He wasn't just born into the script, he was spoken into it. Lamine's father isn't absent. He's appeared publicly. But when asked about the photo with Messi, something shifted. His face tightened. His expression cracked. He didn't explain the photo, he reacted to it. And sometimes that says more than words, because in carefully scripted stories, the truth isn't always missing. It's buried in the body language of those forced to guard it. Then there's his Spain jersey, 19. In Sufism and esoteric Islam, 19 is the code of God, a number tied to the gates of hell, encrypted in the Quran, said to be protected by 19 angels of judgment. Why would a teenager wear that number? Who assigned it to him? What does it signal? Here's what they didn't want you to notice. Lamine. Each letter comes directly from Lionel Andreas Messi. Li Lionel, An Andreas, Me Messi. Not a tribute, a transfer. A name embedded in the past to legitimize the future. The ritual continues. This isn't a coincidence, it's choreography. A prophetic name, a silent father, a divine number. This is no ordinary rise. Decode the name, trace the numbers, watch the reactions, and the pattern starts to form. Lamine Yamal wasn't discovered, he was delivered, prepared, positioned, and named to inherit something far older than football. Because the script always needs a new performer. La Masia is hailed as football's greatest academy, the birthplace of legends, Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets. A factory of talent, a dream for any young footballer. But that's just the surface story. La Masia isn't just a school, it's a repurposed 18th century farmhouse, positioned exactly at 41.3809 degrees north, 2.1228 degrees east. Plot those coordinates, and they intersect the Masonic Meridian Line. Coincidence or placement by design? Messi, Iniesta, Xavi, La Masia's Holy Trinity. All debuted under Frank Rijkaard. All wore odd-numbered jerseys tied to esoteric numerology. All avoided scandal. All remained silent. No rebellion, no controversy, as if they weren't just discovered, but engineered. Yamal was named the chosen one, but La Masia is where that belief was conditioned into him. The system doesn't wait to see who becomes special. It programs them to believe they already are. Recruits live together from the age of 11, isolated, schedules controlled, media filtered, meals regulated. Sound familiar? That's textbook psychological conditioning, the same methods used by religious cults and military black ops programs. La Masia isn't a school, it's a ritual chamber, a quiet machine that filters out free will and molds prodigies into programmable idols. Messi lived at La Masia for years. He rarely gave interviews, never criticized the system, and to this day, he's never once spoken publicly about the academy's inner workings. Even when asked, what did he sign? What is he still protecting? If La Masia is the temple, then FIFA is the cathedral, and Lamine Yamal, just the latest initiate, ascending the altar. La Masia is painted as football's holy grail, a beacon of youth, discipline, and legacy, the birthplace of legends, Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, a temple of pure development. But what if that image is a carefully curated facade? What if La Masia isn't a factory for talent, but for obedience? Behind the scenes, it's not football minds running the show, it's narrative engineers. And at the heart of it is Joan Laporta, the puppeteer of Barcelona, the same man who built La Masia's modern form, who allegedly paid Negreira, and whose fingerprints show up everywhere power concentrates. Laporta didn't just shape a youth academy, he built a control grid. With deep ties to Catalan independence, city elites, and international finance, he turned Barcelona into a political apparatus disguised as a club, not to develop players, but to shape symbols. Barcelona's hierarchy is laced with Masonic whispers. Some believe La Masia itself was designed with Masonic geometry, its layout, its coordinates, its hidden markers. This wasn't just architecture, it was initiation. La Masia's real agenda? Not development, grooming. Players are selected, sculpted, and sold to Barcelona, to FIFA, to the world stage. And sometimes, figures like Lamine, the landlord, appear just in time, like handlers in disguise. La Masia isn't just an academy, it's a ritual chamber, where identity is stripped and puppets are made. The men we call managers? They're gatekeepers, not just tacticians, but sentinels of the script, pushing chosen players, protecting the silent system. And it goes deeper. The Spanish government wasn't just complicit, they were strategic. A judicial spell, not justice, not law, allegiance, used to bypass regulations and keep hand-picked players eligible, even when the money behind them was fake. It wasn't a loophole, it was a ritual workaround, signed with a smile. Lamine Yamal didn't rise through merit, he was installed. Club executives, political handlers, global marketers. From dorm schematics to PR contracts, his image was carved long before his debut. Even Raphinha, with better stats, was sidelined. Why? Because Raphinha didn't fit the prophecy. Barcelona's ties to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, China. They weren't sponsorships, they were influence routes. And Yamal? He wasn't a graduate, he was a vessel. Qatar didn't just fund Barca, they funded the story. They gained image rights, influence, access to players' narratives, including youth players like Yamal. What looks like FIFA promoting stars might be Barca installing pawns into FIFA. Every Ballon d'Or nod, every front row photo op. It's not recognition, it's rehearsal. Fame? Yes. Freedom? Never. The boy who won a raffle to see Messi now realizes he's not chasing Messi's path, he's replacing it. He was never chasing a dream, he was cast in a role. Yamal's name wasn't on a highlight reel, it was on a contract. Leaked documents label youth players not as athletes, but as return-generating assets, portfolio items, with projected ROI tied to public image. This wasn't scouting, it was prophecy accounting. If they could do this to Yamal, what about the next prodigy, the next Messi? What if the stars of tomorrow aren't discovered, they're authored? Because once you control the vessel, you don't need talent, you just need a template. Lamine Yamal's rise has been sold to us as a natural progression of talent, a kid from humble beginnings who was discovered, nurtured, and destined for greatness. The story is simple. A young boy, just a raw talent, who was found by Barcelona and brought into the academy, La Masia, to rise above the rest. But this story, the one they want us to believe, is a carefully constructed illusion. What if the real reason behind Yamal's success lies not in his talent, but in the hidden forces that shaped his journey from the very start? From the very beginning, there were strange forces at play in Lamine's life. His family, struggling to make ends meet, were taken in by a landlord named Lamine. This man offered them a roof over their heads during their most desperate time. But Lamine wasn't just any landlord. What if Lamine was part of a much larger network controlling the paths of young stars like Yamal, ensuring that they would rise in ways that served a hidden agenda? Was Lamine more than just a benevolent figure? Could he have been a key player in the global conspiracy, quietly guiding Lamine's rise? La Masia isn't just a school for young footballers. It's a carefully designed grooming system where kids are isolated, conditioned, and molded from a young age. It's not just about footballing talent. It's about creating global symbols of success that can be controlled. And when you look deeper, it's clear that this system has been shaping future stars like Lamine Yamal for a larger agenda. Yamal wasn't just found because of his talent. He was chosen, pushed into the spotlight, and strategically placed to represent something much bigger than just a football player. Yamal's success doesn't just come from his own ability. It comes from a web of puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes. These figures have used La Masia, Qatar, and even political figures to ensure that players like Yamal rise to the top, regardless of who has better numbers or more natural ability. It's all about control, not merit. What if those in power aren't just manipulating Lamine's career, but also the entire narrative of football, and Yamal is just the next molded prodigy in line? What if Barcelona's success and La Masia's rise is tied to hidden Masonic symbols and secret power structures? Barcelona isn't just a football club, it's a tool in a much larger game. Lamine Yamal's rise wasn't just about talent, it was about strategic placement in a global agenda controlled by elite networks. This game isn't just about who wins, it's about who controls the narrative of the sport itself. The young footballer we see in Lamine Yamal is not a self-made success story. He is a product of a system designed to ensure that the right players make it to the top, no matter the cost. And while the world celebrates his meteoric rise, few realize that Yamal's story isn't really his own. He's being molded, not for his personal greatness, but for something much bigger, a machine of control, manipulation, and global influence. They call it the Brotherhood, a network of silent hands and hidden symbols. Some claim Yamal's rise isn't just athletic, it's ritualistic. From his debut dates to the numbers on his back, everything might be encoded by design. And if the Masons were involved from the beginning, what exactly was this prodigy initiated into? Lamine Yamal, like so many before him, may have already made the ultimate sacrifice. When a young talent's career is no longer his to control, what happens to his dreams? What happens when puppet masters shape a player's destiny? Is Yamal truly free to pursue his future, or is he just another pawn in a much larger game of power and control? And maybe it's not a coincidence. The landlord's name, Lamine, a mirror of Yamal. Reverse the prodigy, and you reveal the handler. In Masonry, reversals aren't random, they're ritual. The story doesn't end with Yamal. If the landlord and the hidden network have shaped his future, who else is part of this larger system? Who are the other players being molded behind closed doors? And what's next for Lamine Yamal once his rise has been fully orchestrated? Football has always been about stories. The young star, the underdog, the savior. And Lamine Yamal, he's all three. But when every camera is pointed at you and every step is choreographed, you're no longer living a story, you're performing one. He wasn't just hyped, he was written into prophecy. Every touch, every goal, every smile has been used to build an icon. And what do all icons need? A divine origin, a chosen narrative, a script that must be followed. FIFA and Barcelona allegedly employed the same PR agency used in state propaganda campaigns. Their task? Shape Yamal into more than a player, shape him into a symbol. Yamal's story wasn't discovered, it was drafted. As the brand grows, the boy disappears. He no longer owns his decisions, his image, or even his dreams. He's no longer Lamine, he's an avatar. So now that the prophet has been forged, who built the temple and what lies beneath it? Football isn't just a sport, it's the new global religion, a ritual watched by billions, a stage where gods are manufactured. And La Masia? Qatar? FIFA? They're not clubs or countries anymore, they're temples. And Lamine Yamal, he's not a player, he's a messiah, forged in fire, blessed by the architects, and offered to the masses. Now freeze that final image. The throne, the stage, the spotlight. Geometry doesn't lie. The pyramid shape, the steps, the eye-like circle of lights above. The pyramid steps, aligned in multiples of 3, just like his jersey, just like the angle he pointed to the heavens. This isn't just symbolism, it's architecture mimicking initiation. La Masia's temple was never a metaphor, it was always hiding in plain sight. This isn't entertainment, it's worship disguised as spectacle. At the base of FIFA's Zurich headquarters, barely visible to the public, is an inscription in Latin. Ludus est lex, Deus est ordo. The game is law, God is order. And above the entrance, a golden emblem eerily similar to the Masonic compass. This isn't architecture, it's doctrine. We thought we were watching matches. We were watching rituals. The pre-match ceremonies, the Ballon d'Or, the grooming of children into legends. It's a spiritual funnel, a conversion machine. And Lamine Yamal, he's the first child of this new world order. He never stood a chance, because this wasn't about his dreams. It was about ours. Our need for heroes, our obsession with greatness, our blind faith in the script. They told us to worship him. Even his name isn't sacred. Mirror it, invert it, and you don't get a child of prophecy, you get the architect. But the real question is, who wrote the gospel? They control who gets to rise. Now ask yourself, what if they also control who gets to cheat? Up next, watch the entire history of doping in football before it disappears.